Hi everyone, and welcome back to episode 13, Signs and Portents. And that's it. This was a really exciting episode. It was like the first time where I experienced goosebumps, where I was like riveted, and where I thought it was just, I mean, I know that B5 was like filmed in the 90s, but just between the music and the animation, the CGI, and just, I don't know, everything just merged together so well, and it was really riveting. The last episode where I really felt interested was the episode where it was between basically what happened to Sinclair and the Minbari. But now this is the episode that like really just caught my attention. So I'm kind of finally like happy to see that it's made this kind of progress in the story, and I guess it's gonna keep moving forward in this direction and this trajectory. So I'm really looking forward to that. So what do I talk about here? I mean, usually I have like this, sort of monologue prepared for all the things I want to like talk about, like all the things that resonated with me, but this episode's a little bit different because I think for me it's going to be a bit more fan based.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm like, I think now you could definitely say I'm beginning to be a B5 fan. But still, keep the media therapy portion to it. So where do I start?
Did anything resonate with you?
Yes.
Okay.
There's definitely a couple of things in there that I could extensively talk about, and like sort of dissect it in a way where we could really understand how media therapy works, and that would be actually kind of cool because up until now we haven't really done that. It's not very traditional, not traditional, but it's not the way that I haven't presented it in a way that per se your vision of media therapy would have been done. And a lot of that is attributed to the fact that all this information definitely could have been helpful for me 10 years ago when I didn't know all this stuff, or, I'm just sort of only beginning to understand more about me and the world and forming my own worldviews. And I say 10 years ago because I'm a little bit of a late bloomer.
Just a tad.
Just a tad. And there are reasons for that, as I've shared before in previous episodes. So we'll definitely get to that. So I don't know if we should get to that now, or yeah, you know what? Let's do that. We'll get to that now, where I'll talk about a couple of things that really, really resonated with me first in this episode, that really hit close to home, and then we could talk about the things that I really loved about this episode and my excitement going forward. So definitely stoked. I never use that word either. It's so weird. There was no other way to describe it.
Oh, that was weird. Don't do that
That doesn't feel right. All right. So the thing that resonated with me, so let's see. Morden.
Morden resonates with a lot of people.
Morden's actions, but not necessarily. Well, okay. So Morden goes around asking people, what do you want? He goes actually to the ambassadors to ask them, what do you want, right? And as we have talked about before, it's a bit of a dangerous question if some random person you don't know, asks you what you want, and you believe in otherworldly things. So it could be a very dangerous question. The question, what do you want, is a very powerful question in my opinion. It's not a question that's often, I think, asked, because usually people are telling others what they want and other people are not really listening. But when you ask, what do you want, there's an intent that that person also wants to listen. So I find it very interesting where Morden goes to Jakar and Londo And they both were initially like resistant to answering the question, what do you want? They're like, what do you mean, what do I want? Get lost, What do you mean, what do I want? Like, I don't need to answer that. You can just get away, leave me alone, and just go about your own business so I could go about mine. And both times, as he's about to turn away, they decide to then answer the question. The question, what do you want, is validating. First and foremost, because when someone asks you, what do you want? I mean, they initially don't answer the question because they're suspicious. It's like, what does it matter if I told someone else? It's not like it's going to happen anyway, or they're going to listen, or it becomes irrelevant, right, to tell a stranger. But then there's also something to it where you actually can put it out in the open, like say it in words and express it to someone else what you want. And it has this like very like, it could even be a very cathartic moment too. So each time when Morden was going to turn away, they answered a question. And they both went at it. Jakar was just saying, he wanted justice, he wanted this, he wanted this. He just went for it, the whole 9 yards. Every dark thought he had. He just let it all out. Not that it's a secret or anything. I think the whole universe knows what Jakar wants at this point, that he wants the Centauri just to be wiped off the face of the universe, right?
What do you want?
Well, what do you mean, what do I want?
What do you want?
What do I want for supper? What do I want to do this evening?
What do you want?
This is pointless. What I want is for you to go away and leave me in peace.
As you say.
Wait! What do I want? The Centauri stripped my world. I want justice.
But what do you want?
To suck the marrow from their bones and grind their skulls to powder.
What do you want?
To tear down their cities, blacken their sky, sow their ground with salt. To completely, utterly erase them.
And then what?
I don't know. As long as my homeworld's safety is guaranteed, I don't know that it matters.
I see. Well, thank you very much for your time, Ambassador. Good day.
But I felt that was like a very powerful moment for him, and even cathartic. The question then Morden asks was, after you wipe the Centauri off the face of the earth, well, the planet, the universe, right? And then what? And he says, I don't know. That resonated with me. So I was thinking about a few times in my life where I guess, now I haven't really thought this out. I do a lot of processing like live, so it's more organic, but I realize that I end up saying things that I wouldn't have even thought of it had I planned it out either. So on the fly, I guess what it made me think about was sort of how I went through the motions of my life. I just kind of followed the trajectory of, okay, fine, my parents expecting me to go to college. Well, I can't do anything with a bachelor's degree in psychology, so I guess I'll go for a master's degree, because I guess I have to get a master's degree first, because I was misinformed that you could actually get a dual degree in a doctorate program. But that's like another story. So I went and decided to go do a master's degree. And while I was there, I was like, well, I don't think I could do much with a master's degree. Now, that's before I knew what I could do with a master's degree, because there was really no direction. There was no direction back then in the early 2000s. I have no idea. I felt so lost. So because I didn't have like the sense of direction and guidance from like people who could sort of lead the way, like sort of, you know, provide me with any coaching in the direction of my life, I just went through the motions. And it was like, okay, well, Jenny, after you get your degree in a bachelor's degree in psychology, what now? Well, I guess I have to go on. Okay, a master's degree. And then it's like, and then what? And then I go on for a doctorate degree, and then what? And it's like, looking towards the far future was not something that I could ever envision after I met those like little steps in my goals. And that was such a hindrance for me, because I think, you know, not being able to have like this vision in my mind that I felt was attainable kept me complacent. It kept me at a place of being very wanting to stay within what was familiar to me. Recently, a friend of mine asked me a question. He asked me why I stayed at the job that I did, even though I had passed my boards. And I told him it was because I was content. And he asked me, is it because you're content? It sounds like it's because you're just more familiar with it. And he was right. It's because it was familiar to me. And for me, looking far off into the distant future was something that I wasn't so good at really feeling confident in myself to attain. So, you know, I had all these moments of like, all right, well, I want this, and I want this, and these are all these like sort of momentary things. And then the question, and then what, was not something that I was good at answering for myself. You know, what I realized lately was that it wasn't until I took the steps towards something that was unfamiliar and that I was willing to go towards in that direction that the question, and then what, became a little bit clearer. And now it's like I have like this new plan and like new goals in my life that I want to achieve that seems much more attainable than it ever did before, even though I may have thought of these goals some like 10 years prior. So I guess the lesson to be learned in this, for me, in this moment is that as long as you keep taking steps forward, whatever the distant future goals that you see and the visions you see may seem very unattainable, as long as you keep moving forward in successive progression, I guess it becomes much more visible. Much like, you know, if you were traveling in your car and you could see sort of the mountains you're headed to, and like it becomes closer and closer as you get there. I don't know what your car's answer is going to be, but I do know mine.
Getting you to understand that was always impossible. Getting you to understand that there were steps in obtaining a larger goal was never something that you were willing to do because you were always in survival mode.
Mm-hmm. And there's a reason for that.
Day to day, just getting up in the morning, right? You were just trying to get through these very difficult times, like with your health and so on and so forth. Everything was about surviving. And I think a lot of people, especially now, are in survival mode. And the far off future is not important. What's important is, look, I got to get to tomorrow. I got to get this.
I got to get through the day, right?
Exactly.
So And yeah, for me, I had a variety of variables that were so equally, like one was equally as challenging as the next, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the fact that I got through my schooling, my degree, was a miracle in and of itself, considering how sick I was especially during my doctorate, the doctorate program days. I was so sick. During my internship, dissertation, and postdoc years, that was a nightmare for me. I mean, I can't. Oh, the chronic fatigue was so bad. The brain fog was so bad. My GI problems were so bad that just even getting up in the morning to even stay awake for 2 hours was a hardship in itself.
And when you were awake, you were throwing up.
Yeah, I was. Too. Yeah, I was. I went through a period of, yeah, I was just really incredibly sick with a lot of symptoms that was just really challenging. So, even now I don't feel good, right? Even now I try to get through my day. So, it's kind of hard to figure this out or really pinpoint it, because you don't really, I can't really tell. I always ask myself the question, had I not been sick, would I have gotten further? If I didn't deal with chronic fatigue and brain fog that, didn't feel like narcolepsy. And I was also tested for narcolepsy, and, even though I didn't have narcolepsy, they were going to give me treatment for basically narcolepsy, because the fatigue was so bad.
Mm-hmm.
Well, medication really for narcolepsy so I could stay awake. But so the question remains, had I not been so ill, would I have gotten a lot further? Most likely, yes. I can say that. Would I have been through stages of depression if it wasn't for my chronic illness? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would have been a lot further. I wouldn't have been affected by, these episodes of depression where I felt so, paralyzed. And did I ever miss work? No. Was I in survival mode? Absolutely. I did everything to get through my day, just to get through the day and make sure that all the things were taken care of. Was I able to see the future? I can't tell you yes, because my future was all about factoring in how sick I was going to be. Mm-hmm. And honestly, one of the biggest reasons why, even though I passed my boards last year, why it took a while for me to, figure out what I really wanted to do, was because I was trying to factor in a job where I could have the flexibility I needed. Because I need to take care of myself so I could be the best I can be at my job. The current job I have allowed for all of that. Mm-hmm. And that's why that familiar was not something I could leave. And that's not something it's not a conversation that I really even had with other people as well, for them to understand. I mean, they don't, whether or not they want to understand is another story, right?
Right.
But that was a reason why I stayed at this job for as long as I did. And it was because it accommodated, my needs. Mm-hmm. It's comfortable, it's familiar. I'm very good at it. Do I want to go into new territory? Absolutely. Am I ready for it? Yeah. Hell yeah. I'm ready to, practice as a psychologist and do what I want. Well, I always say that psychotherapy for me is basically working as a personal investigator for the other person's soul, where you piece together all these puzzles, in their life and help them put it together. And I always love that work. I find it so profound and rewarding, but more so than anything else is just the relief and the happiness that the clients have, you know, gained from that is something that I always found to be, you know, such an honor that I was able to be a part of that, you know. So I definitely want to get to that. So there were factors in my life where the, you know, and then what was this huge question mark. But at this point, I have much more control over my health than I ever did before. I have made tons and tons of investment in understanding my body, in trying to, you know, get it to the best I can. So I am functioning, and it's a work in progress, but I know I'll get to a place where I will definitely be symptom free. I had gotten there before. I just have to do the maintenance on it. Yeah, so I'm definitely looking forward to that. But there are variables there that do keep people from like being able to see the future that they want to see, and then work towards it. Those mini goals are not easy all the time to do. It's not, because you have so many reasons and you may have so many excuses. But there, you know, like they say, there is a will. If there's a will, there's a way. And you can certainly get there, but it is a matter of trying to find out like what's going to work for you, just as I, you know, had to really work through what's going to work for me. And I did. When Morden asked Londo the question, what do you want? Londo's response really resonated with me more. Like this was like basically the highlight of the episode for me in terms of just my own inner reflection.
You are a very persistent young man.
I have to be. I'm not allowed to leave here until you've answered my question. What do you want?
This is a silly conversation.
Yes, it is. What do you want?
To be left alone.
Is that it? Is that really all, Ambassador?
All right. Fine. You really want to know what I want? You really want to know the truth? I want my people to reclaim their rightful place in the galaxy. I want to see the Centauri stretch forth their hand again and command the stars. I want a rebirth of glory, a renaissance of power. I want to stop running through my life like a man late for an appointment, afraid to look back or to look forward. I want us to be what we used to be. I want it all back the way that it was. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Yes, it does.
When he says the line, I want us to be what we used to be, it made me think about 2 times in my life where I was probably at my best self. One was when I was about 14, and I was working under the table because I had to make money for my school books for high school. My parents couldn't afford it. So I always had to make my own money every year over the summer for my school books. So between babysitting and working every Saturdays as a cashier under the table. Look, no one can report me. That was like 30,000 years ago. God, how much did I even make at the time? I think it was like $40 a day.
Hey, that's something.
I would have to say that was one of the times I was most resilient. Despite the negative family dynamics at home, my adolescence, all this coming of age stuff I didn't get to participate in. I persevered. And on the hottest days, this store did not have air conditioning, and here I am just dripping with sweat, and people would say, isn't this work hard for you? And I just said, well, you know, it is what it is. I just have to do it so I could meet my goals. Here's my goals, right? To be able to make money for my school books. Being able to go back to that time where I was a bit more innocent and more perseverant.
Perseverance.
Oh my God. Where I had
Resilience.
much more, where I like had like perseverance, you know, like being able to do the work I did, and like really plowing through that. Yeah, I think about that me once in a while. It comes to mind. The other time was right before I got sick, when we started doing all these projects, you know, between like these photo shoots, and when we started a little bit of the media therapy back then, and I was writing essays. I think about that time as well. And that was probably one of my, you know, in my adulthood, the best time where I was doing a lot of self-exploration and growth and dabbling in projects that I never even would have dreamed of ever doing. And it was fun. Do I want to go back to that time? Yeah. That was right before I was sick. So yeah, was it fun? Yeah. Were there a lot less responsibilities in my life then too? Yes. I do think about that time and wonder if I had made decisions a little differently, if it could have prevented things. That's a hard question to answer though, because I wasn't always at my best health, but definitely something triggered it during that time.
Triggered your bad health?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
So the part where he says, I want to stop running through my life like a man late for an appointment, afraid to look back or to look forward. For the longest time, that was me. You know, looking back meant having to deal with all these regrets. And regret is a very tough pill to swallow. And then like looking forward was very hard, as like I had talked about before, because the vision I had just seemed so unattainable. But oddly enough, it was such a paradox that I always felt like I was in such a rush for life. When I resigned from my last job, a coworker of mine bought me like a little plaque. You know what it says? It says, slow down so happiness can catch up to you. What was I rushing towards? I didn't even have like a bigger vision. I mean, I did and I didn't. It was like every single day I would rush and rush and rush just to get to what?
Life?
I think it was probably get to my bed.
When I met you, you seemed like someone who wanted to do a lot of things.
I did.
When we first met, you were all about doing things.
I did.
Right? And I always got the impression that it was because you worked so hard most of your life that you hit a certain point and you wanted to do things. You wanted to like not be this person that was just like working all the time.
Yeah, working and going to school. That was like...
Right. You also had
God.
no sense of humor. You had zero like understanding of like the real world.
No, because my life was just basically work and school. That's it.
So you were very about going out. You wanted to do stuff. It seemed to me like you were very much in a rush to kind of live your life, is kind of how I took it. Whatever that meant, that was not work or school, but just kind of living your life, doing something that was interesting, even though we had to pull teeth to get you to do interesting things. But that's how I always saw you, as someone who kind of wanted to just break out of this, kind of train of work and school that you had been in the whole time and just do things.
Yeah, that's a very true statement. You know, my childhood wasn't filled with, like, you know, cotton candy, carnival rides, and trips. It wasn't filled with, you know, sunshine. Even on the most beautiful sunny day, it always felt gloomy. So, you know, given that my childhood was a struggle, and then all throughout my teens was a struggle, and then my 20s was, oh my God, just more struggle between just full-time school, full-time work, and then adding that, like, field work and practicums as part of the program. So I was literally working 60 hours a week, and I did third shift as my full-time job, so then I could actually go to school during the week and do my practicums. I was so sleep deprived. It wasn't, and that was, like, really the beginning of, like, me fostering this really bad health. So no, I never understood fun. I never understood. And then on top of that, you couple that with my mom's idea, like the poor person's mentality of how money should be just saved. Anytime you spent a little money, there's like this tremendous amount of guilt that's attached to it. So going out to eat just for these little pleasures had a huge price tag psychologically. And that wasn't fun. I couldn't translate that into something that was fun until years later when I understood what it meant to take care of yourself. That these little things that money can buy for you, if they add to your happiness, has greater worth. As we had even talked about, you know, even getting yourself a $10 Starbucks coffee, right? Even though you may not be able to afford it, if it's a moment of bringing you that, like, sort of like, oh my God, this is so oishi, right? Like, it's so good, and you just want to savor and indulge in that because, you know, your senses are what gives you pleasure. So yeah, it's not, that was something that I understood later on, you know, not in my teens, not in my 20s, and I only got a taste of it in my 30s, really. I fully come to understand it now. So it's like, I've always felt like I was rushing towards something, and I think I was rushing towards to be able to get to a place where I could enjoy my life. But then the irony is that I'm rushing towards this without, like, I'm just rushing through my day, and I just feel so hurried but that's really a metaphor for, like, how restless I felt. And even up until, like, a short while ago, that I felt like this restlessness, just feeling like I just want to rush towards something that I want for myself. Every time I see Londo, like, I really connect with him. You know, Londo is like someone I always felt like I emotionally connect with. Even as he's, like, talking to Lord Kiro, that dude who gets killed.
Oh, yeah.
About, you know, the sacrifices that we all have to make, and that the Centauri really isn't going, you know, the Centauri isn't what they used to be. And he's just sort of reflecting in this conversation, as well as he's having this conversation with Lord Kiro, but, like, his micro expressions are just so, like, you know, it's part defeated and part acceptance that I see in his face as he's talking to Lord Kiro. I really, you know, Londo is I connect with him. Like those micro expressions are just so on point with like the things that I felt about my life and, you know, and my past.
Now I really want you to finish the series.
Now you really want me to? Oh God, I am really looking forward to it.
So badly, because his story arc is probably the best of every person on that show. His arc is probably the most amazing.
Peter is such a great actor.
Yes.
Like I you know, I could feel his emotions, you know, through the screen. It's amazing. I mean, it makes me tear when I think of it. Everything makes me tear. I'm so emotional.
Him and Jakar have. That is the whole reason why I would want anyone to watch B5 is to see how those two evolve.
I continue to look forward to it. My favorite character in this episode, guess who it is?
Morden.
No.
In this episode. I don't know.
Let me get a sip of water. I need to make my little table over here. I have to put it together. All right. My favorite character in this episode is Lady Ladira.
The psychic woman? Really? Okay, now I'm intrigued. Why?
As odd as she presents, she gives no two shits.
Right.
I love that she's sort of in her own world, and it doesn't really matter whether or not people believe her. She's not looking for any external validation, and now you can understand why that would resonate with me. Mm-hmm. For someone who, you know, I grew up like so invalidated all my life that I went through like such a period of time where validation was what I always felt like I needed, and you know what, it just felt like it was never enough because you just didn't get it from the people that you really needed to hear it from. So, but I love the fact that she just really, it didn't matter because she was just so aware of her own strength and her own powers. It just doesn't matter whether or not someone believes her, and like how eccentric she is. Mm. She's very eccentric. Eccentric. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of words I don't pronounce correctly.
It's part of your charm. And technically, she was not wrong about what she said about him.
She wasn't.
That was the one thing he cited as an example of her having been wrong in the past, but she wasn't wrong.
She wasn't. Right. The future wasn't completely told yet.
Exactly.
She wasn't wrong. And my God, you know, in the very few scenes, she only had basically a couple of scenes. In those two scenes, like, it was just so powerful. The one scene where she's like looking at what's transpiring, like in the mug, and she sees the whole vision, right? She sees what did she see what Lord Kiro did too?
I don't think so.
Okay. She sees what happens, right, in this coffee mug. And the outcome was so devastating. Basically, the shadow appears. Oh my God, that scene was just so... It was so beautiful. As horrible as that may sound, like that thing appearing and just taking out a spaceship, I mean, it just warps in at like the edge of the screen with like this, it's spikes. It was beautiful. It was like a scene that gave me like goosebumps. Is that right? That's not okay?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
I'm not
Am I warped?
I'm not used to seeing you so enthusiastic.
No, that was amazing.
Kind of interesting too.
That was amazing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but like when she like sees a vision, right, and she drops the mug, that silent pain. Oh. And then I thought, that's what people feel when they're in pain and they suffer silently. The first thing that came to mind was just, someone who is in any kind of pain, physical and both psychological, right? And you're just, dealing it with you're just dealing it with it alone. And no one else could ever really understand that.
Or believe you.
Or believe you. Especially if they can't see the pain. As long as it's not some, like, gaping wound that, like, is visible. But, like, but certainly it's like I could sort of connect what the pain that she felt within, like, just like, oh my God, this is happening, right? It's like I imagine what it would feel like. And also, I've also felt too, like, that silent pain that no one else would ever really know. The magnitude of what that distress feels like internally for yourself. That was intense. Absolutely intense. The other scene that was just so wonderful about her. She's having this conversation with Sinclair. And she's like, well, the vision is still there. It's not easy. But I can let you see, basically, the destruction of Babylon 5 in the future.
I had a vision about this place.
He told me, but we came through the attack in one piece. The station's safe.
For now. But the vision, Commander. The vision is still there. It's not an easy thing. But I can let you see. If you will trust me.
This is it a vision of what will be or what might be?
The future is always changing. We create the future with our words, our deeds, and with our beliefs. This is a possible future, Commander. And it is my hope that you may yet avoid it.
And I love Sinclair. Sinclair is like aspects of him. His character, like but these are aspects because he is a whole person after all, and he's not perfect, right. like no one is, right? But there are aspects of him that are just so. He resonates with me. He is someone that I, strive to be like. When she says this to him, his statement is, he doesn't say, oh, that's foolish. He doesn't dismiss her. He doesn't dismiss her. He's just so open-minded. And he says, is this a vision of what will be or what might be? And I love that he asks this question that's so, it's well-rounded. It's not, he doesn't catastrophize it. He doesn't see it in black and white. He doesn't, go all up in arms about it. He doesn't invalidate her. None of that. It's just inquisitive. It's curious. It's concerning. It's, he wants to gather more information. I love that he asks this question in this way, and it's so him, which is why I love that about him. And her response, the future is always changing. We create the future with our words, our deeds, and our beliefs. This is a possible future. And it is my hope that you may yet avoid it. That's such a powerful statement. There are a lot of people who, you know, who have cognitive distortions, right? Who who sees things in black and white, or who end up catastrophizing things. And then, like, if we scale it back in a more general sense, where, you know, we feel like certain certain decisions have like this one outcome, and sometimes we think that we can't fix it. It's just an absolute. I mean, if we take, for example, things that have happened in our relationships, and, you know, you feel like, you know, since the relationship with someone has become like so damaged, you can't ever, like, you know, get it back. Sometimes you can. Sometimes it can be salvaged. Sometimes it can be resolved. Sometimes it can just, you know, or sometimes you can find a different kind of like resolution to that devastation, right? But the point is that nothing is an absolute. And that message is so profound. I think often sometimes when people are met with like failures, it just seems like they have to give up. When my health got really bad, and and this is right after I completed all of my coursework for my doctorate program, and I had the dissertation and the internship left as my final pieces to get my degree. I had stayed matriculated in the program for a few years, paying, I don't know, a few $1,000s every year to stay matriculated. That was a donation. That was a charity in itself. I should have claimed that on my taxes. I went to the professor, and I told him that I was contemplating dropping out of the program and no longer staying matriculated because my health was so bad, and I just didn't have it in me to persevere. The idea of just those 2 huge steps was so daunting for me, especially during that time of my life. Oh my God, just thinking about it has like, it brings back all this weight. He stopped me. He said to me that he really felt that I was so close to finishing, and that when I do finish, I could really help a lot of people, given my perspectives, my background, and my resilience. And after hearing that, I just couldn't do it. I didn't have it in me to like just let it go, because it was true that I, you know, really worked hard to pay for my school, to pay, you know, I never had, another reason why I worked full time was so I could pay for my school, my tuition. I never took out any student loans. Because why? Because in my family, you're not supposed to have loans and debt, and, you know, you have to like really be able to pay for everything, and anytime you spend any money on any luxury, even if it was a cup of coffee, you should feel guilty. So I persevered, and I couldn't leave the program, and I just stayed. And had I left, I'm sure that would have been a very different future. So the bottom line is, the future is based on the decisions you make. But, you know, there are certain outcomes that will happen. But it can also always change. And you could also, you know, feel that about your life too, that it's not absolute. You're not just sort of pigeonholed into like one way of living. And for the longest time I did. For the longest time I did. I thought to myself, you know, my life has to be just working at this job because this is the only thing I was good at, and living according to sort of the set ways of living because that was what was ingrained in me. Every moment to moment changes. And because every moment to moment changes, your future will always change. It's not like it's like you're on this thread and like there can be any variable that can come in or leave or come out or, you know, and that always continuously changes every moment. Oh my God, let me tell you. Here's my other like fan moment this episode. The Raiders are there, and here's this huge Babylon spaceship, right, that you just see, right? And like the Raiders are there, and like, you know, the B5 like little spaceships are there, which are, I think, are just absolutely phenomenal, and like how they move and stuff. I really loved it, the design, right?
The Star Furies.
Yeah, the Star Furies. And like, and he's giving orders. And like, oh my God, he's activating the defense grid. He's doing all this, and he has that much skill and that much power, right? And that was so hot.
Close blast doors. Prepare for attack. Level 1 alert. Activate defense grids.
Defense grids online.
Alpha Leader, whatever's on that ship, they want it bad. Make sure it doesn't get away.
What about the station?
We can take care of ourselves. Now go.
Roger.
Oh my God, the defense, like the little towers that come out, oh, they might be big, but like, you know, the little towers that come out of the space station, they're just pew-pewing, and I'm like, and I was...
You said you hadn't realized how big Babylon 5 was either until that.
No.
The station itself.
No, because you know, you only see the space station, right? But then like you have like the Raider ships and the Star Furies to scale. Mm-hmm. Here's this huge ship in the middle of the universe, and like he is the actual commander of this ship.
It's a station, not a ship. It doesn't move.
Station, right? The station.
If that was a ship, we would have problems. That thing is ginormous. No, it's
right,
a station. Yeah,
right. That is amazing, and he is in control of it. He is.
I think because we mostly just see him doing all the bureaucratic work, as opposed to commanding, you know, the station. We mostly see him putting out fires and doing the political stuff.
But this is also the first time where he's like, yeah, you're right. This is the first time we're seeing him act as the commander of a space station and using his weapons. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, when he launched the first the Raiders to first initially like out of the space station, he was like, launch, right? And the B5 theme music plays. I was like, I had all these goosebumps. It was so amazing. It was so good.
You hear that music every time the show
It
opens.
had no impact until this moment.
Yeah.
It had no effect on me until that moment.
Now we close the box. Babylon control to Delta Wing. Proceed.
Confirm Babylon control. Surprise.
Tactical display.
They're retreating.
Good. Right down the middle of the gauntlet.
Delta Wing, fire. Alpha Wing, fire. Fire defense grid, all sectors.
That's got him.
That was something. Another moment where I want to give Sinclair credit. When Delta 9 didn't make it, Garibaldi asks Sinclair whether or not he should notify the family. And he says, no, I will. I like that, you know, they show these little moments of him, but it says so much about who he is. I love that. So I have questions.
Okay. Questions
Yeah.
about the show?
Moments.
Oh, okay.
The shadows. So basically, Morden meets with Delenn. Delenn has her little triangle lit up.
Delenn is not dealing with. I love that she's like, so I guess you've been to everybody else already. Like she already knows.
No, she already knows, right?
Yeah.
And her triangle gets lit up and she's like, they're here.
The purpose of your question, Mr. Morden, is it?
The question is its own purpose, Ambassador Delenn. What do you want?
I'm informed that you have just seen Ambassador Jakar. Are you asking each of us this question?
Perhaps. Does that invalidate the question?
No, but it makes me wonder.
Something wrong, Ambassador?
No, just a moment of fatigue.
Ambassador.
Leave me. Get out. Now. They're here.
Who is Morden? What is Morden? And what's the goal? Because Kosh is like, they are not for you.
That's a great line. Great Kosh line.
Kosh always has these like one-liners and it's just
They are not.
amazing. They are not for you.
Leave this place. They are not for you. Go. Leave. Now.
Go. Leave. Now. Period. Period. Period.
Yep.
And his encounter suit was damaged. He fought him. They fought.
He fought something, yeah.
Morden's a something?
Morden is a person.
I don't believe you know. Morden something. Another question.
Okay.
Although we already know part of this, right? But basically there were like, what, 500 candidates to like operate the space station?
Yeah.
And like Sinclair was like the last person on the list. He was like probably
499.
Yeah.
You probably know you weren't first in line to run this place.
I suspected as much. I was surprised when they called me. How far down the list was I?
Pretty far. Despite the problems, this is still a high-profile job, a real plum. Admirals, generals, the whole brass was lined up hoping to get it, but every name was rejected until they got to you.
Rejected by whom?
The Minbari government. They were the first to sign on to support Babylon 5 on the condition that they had approval over who was assigned to run this place. They wanted you.
Why?
Unknown.
So they're invested not only in him, but in the station itself.
Why?
Right?
So, I have questions.
You're gonna get your answers very soon.
Okay.
Very, very soon now.
So that means I have to keep watching.
Unfortunately, you're gonna have to watch some of second season too, because...
No, I'm invested. I mean, this was the episode, now I am officially invested. You know, this is the episode that has officially invested me. So, and you keep saying it's gonna get better, so...
It'll get less this non-plot stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Good, because... Yeah, I'm excited. I'm definitely excited. You know what the thing I thought about as I was watching him command the space station, the towers, the Star Furies, I was thinking about his personal life. You know, that on camera, like, he has this, like, such a powerful, like, persona and image. And in his personal life, that you would never know that he struggled with, like, mental illness. And that made me really just sad, you know, like, because it's just, like, it doesn't correlate, you know, and it's, you know, his life in real life and his fictional life, it's not parallel. It's unfortunate because, you know, back then when antipsychotics were still kind of not so great. I actually don't know when the second generation antipsychotics came out, but they were much more effective than the first generation, especially for the negative symptoms, if he had the negative symptoms as well. But it's too bad because, you know, schizophrenia is, for some people who are on medications, it works well, and for some people it's not as effective. And then you were also talking back then, like, this is like, what, a couple of decades ago?
Yeah.
Almost 3 decades ago? Yeah. That makes me pretty sad about, you know, his life, but man, you know, what a great character, though, that he plays. I'm looking forward to more of P5, really, really looking forward to it. So, all right. Well, thank you everyone for watching, and we'll be back again at some point. That's it? At some point? I mean, because we're alternating between Eva and I. Oh, you know, in May I'm going to be very busy. So I'm not sure if we're going to be able to film consistently in May. There's a few things coming up for me. So, but we'll keep filming. That's not going to change. It's just a matter of when it'll go up. But I'm really looking forward to the next episode. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Bye. I do want to touch on something.
Okay.
With regards to media therapy, this isn't really kind of your vision of what we're doing. And media therapy would be about, like, for example, I'm going to bring an example of, like, what media therapy could be in the situation for someone who is working through something that's an issue for them, right? Like, for example, I pointed out Londo's comment about what he wants. I want to stop running through my life like a man late for an appointment, right? That he's afraid to look back or look forward. If anyone said that to you, and in this format, if I came and told this to you, then the person who is helping someone, who's guiding the person through the media therapy, now media is a medium for which you gain something that resonates with you because it means something to you, it triggers something for you, but you don't really know quite what, and you're processing it. To figure out what it means to you, why you feel this way, what are the emotions behind it. what's making you feel like this? What makes you feel afraid of looking back? What makes you feel afraid of looking forward? What are the barriers? What are the hindrances? It's a way of giving you something more tangible that sparks in you so you could completely process it. And then from there, figure out if there need to be some goals, more tangible goals to be made. And that would be an example of what this would be, of how like this can like play out for someone who is doing media therapy. But you know, so yeah, I just wanted to add that piece in there for you, because I'm not, you know, I have a lot of my own personal issues resolved. But you know, this medium definitely gives me a way to be able to articulate the things that I've gone through. And maybe even still struggle now, like if those things do come up for me, and how I probably will plan on tackling them going forward, so then I can, you know, move forward. But that is an example of how that would play out. Is there anything to add to that?
No, I mean, I think for people who are doing media therapy therapeutically, the media allows them to explore things, or it brings up things in them, or triggers them in a way that they didn't anticipate.
Yeah, that's
that
also something
allows
that
them to be like, what is that about? Like, why is that triggering to me? That's one way. The other way is kind of also what you're doing, which is more like, you know, those things resonate with you either because they remind you of things that happened in the past that you've already resolved, or they bring up things for you in the past that maybe you didn't know you already resolved, and that you're like, oh, you know, like the way that you do it, you're reflecting on your past and realizing strengths that you have that maybe you didn't have before. You're able to talk about things now that you weren't maybe able to talk about 10 years ago or whatever. But it's still a process where you're learning about yourself, you're learning to express things that you haven't expressed before. And I think a lot of people would use media therapy that way, just for themselves.
Good.
Home,
Okay.
watching a TV show, and maybe they're just thinking a little bit more deeply about, how does this make me feel, and why does it make me feel like this? If it opens up something new for them, great. But I think a lot of people are just using it to process. And I think that's kind of what you're doing here as well.
Yeah. It's been very enlightening for me. Yeah. It's enlightening, it's interesting, it's fun. It gives me things to really think about. So when I watch episodes, I take a few days, and like certain things would come to mind as I'm, you know, having moments to myself, whether I'm, you know, playing a video game, driving, or even like talking to someone, and it's like, oh, you know, that just resonated, you know, that just came to mind, you know, like what I watched in an episode. It's pretty wonderful that it happens, because it just gives you something else to sort of, you know, tangibly, you know, grab onto, to give you something to think about. And that's cool, that it's not just something that you only pull from, you know, one place, like your life, but then you can grab it from here and then sort of connect it to your life and see, you know, where it can merge or not merge, or another way of understanding things. So that's what's cool.
Teaching you, I guess. Like your Born to the Purple moment was pretty profound.
10 years ago, it surely was.
And I don't know that you would have been able to come to that conclusion without that episode, because that episode is very specific, right? And I think everyone has seen this episode, but it doesn't have any meaning to them.
Yeah, it would resonate differently.
Exactly. But, I mean, you having those moments at this point, it's going to depend on the show, the episode, the line, whatever it is that, you know, but yes, you've come very far, but there's always more, you know, to learn about yourself. It may not be something that you really need to come to terms with. It may just be something new where you're just like, oh, and it maybe changes your perspective on something.
Yeah. Looking forward to that. I mean, I'm just really having fun with this, so. And now that like it's really picked up with the main plot, bring it.
Right. I mean, I think of Londo, I think of you. I think of you with Jakar, again, back when we first met, as far as his rage.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that he feels that
Owed.
yes, and that he's a victim of so much.
Mm-hmm.
And no one gets that. No one gets that he's suffered so much and that he has all of this pent-up anger and real rage that he wants satisfied in some way. Not just him, but all of his people. And again, who he becomes is so different.
I can't wait.
From that.
I can't wait. I mean, it's interesting because back then when I first watched B5, I would say that Jakar was probably more, I guess, where I was, with all that anger I felt within. But Londo is someone I feel like he's my soulmate.
Yeah. Again, I'm just like, oh, you have no idea. Yeah.
I mean, just in terms of just, how he has his experiences, and then he has these moments where he just has to come to terms, But like it just, I look forward. Okay. I'll officially say goodbye now. Bye everyone. Thanks for watching. If you like to send some questions, feel free. I'll try my best to answer them. I will not give advice though. These are all going to be mostly my own personal reflections and, just how I understand myself and my experience in B5. All right. Be well, be safe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.